this happened to one of my very good friends, someone that I grew up with. So this story is sensitive in that nature, that it happened to someone who was very close to me. It happened to someone who I consider to be my friend and considered as someone very close to me. So the story takes place back in 2007. So this friend of mine, he was a smart guy. He was into a lot of he was into a lot of things. He read a lot of stuff. He read a lot of books. He got into a lot of mysterious things. To be honestly, he was creepy in that kind of sense. So when he's 17, he somehow thinks that it sounds funny or corny in this day and age, but he thought that he could take help from black magic. So he went through some books, he went through some texts, some really old books, some very hard to find books, but somehow he got them. He spent quite a fortune finding those texts, and then eventually he found a guy who knew how to get shit done, who knew all about black magic and what to do about it. So this friend of mine, he delves really deep into the dark arts. He delves deep into the knowledge, the understanding of black magic, and he used to always say that the black magic forms that were available today were just old versions. There were just versions of very, very old rituals that when certain people were doing this kind of black magic and they were performing these rituals, they were calling something that was very old, that is ancient, that's older than religion, that's sometimes even older than language itself. So, it was all fun and games. I was a kid back then. I didn't believe much in anything, so let alone some evil entity, some ancient forces of darkness. But as things would progress, my friend became more and more. You could call him entranced. He was visibly taken by this knowledge. He was visibly, you could see it in his form, you could see it the way he was talking, you could see the way he was going around his day, that something was up with this guy. This guy had tapped into something unnatural. And within a couple of months, he used to tell me that he's getting weird dreams. Dreams of dreams that didn't make sense, to be honestly. Dreams that were crazy, and at the same time they felt so real to him. And he would basically see himself reenacting different rituals that he was reading about. He saw himself performing those rituals in his dream, and it kind of got scary for him. It was like a premonition into the future. It was like a foresight into what he would eventually be doing. So fast forward a couple of months, he started performing rituals on a very small scale. Some verses over here, a little talisman here, something there. Though I don't think even he knew what his end game was, what his goal was. But the guy just continued on with it, and by the mid of 2009, this guy was a full-blown wizard. I mean, he was communicating with something out there. When you went to his room, he would show you things. He would make noises appear out of nowhere as if he was communicating with something, and he was summoning things in his room, man. In one of those occasions, I witnessed something in his room that did not make sense to me. It could have been optical illusion. I'm very skeptical about this kind of stuff, so I brushed it off as optical illusion. But one night I was in his room, and this guy was chanting some things. He had candles, and I was just passed out in his room. I was tired. I had a long day. Had a bad fight with my mom and dad, so I just dropped by his place, and I stayed there with him. And that night, I remember before falling asleep, he was like, whatever you do, if you wake up in the middle of the night, don't panic. Don't freak out if you see something out of the ordinary. And I was like, yeah, sure, man. What the fuck? Who gives a shit? And all of a sudden, night came, and I woke up, and instantly the room was filled with smell of incense. I haven't smelled anything so bittersweet in my life. There was a lot of things in the air. He had candles, he had incenses, a lot of minerals that he was working with. I don't know all that stuff, and I'd like not to get into those details, but this fucker was onto something. And what I saw that day, it looked like there was a figure in the room with us, sort of like a shadow person. And this thing was scary big. The weird thing was, it was kind of hunched down to squatting. It was like when you take a shit in those low comment, it's squatting in that position. But you know, when usually a person squats, their knees are usually up to the height of their chest, but this thing was squatting down, and its knees were almost as high as its head, and the head was really small compared to the rest of the body. It just looked weird. I don't know. I think it would give Slenderman a run for its money when it came to elongated arms and legs, because that shit was bizarre. And I freaked out seeing this shadow figure, this silhouette of something in the room. And I just turned around, looked the other way, and went back to sleep. And I couldn't sleep. Of course I couldn't sleep. I was just lying down. I was acting as if I was sleeping. I was trying to give the impression that I did not witness, or I'm not experiencing this thing that was happening in the room that I was present in. But I was just acting like, oh, whatever. And a few minutes later, my friend hops up into the bed, and he's like, whatever you saw, it didn't get bothered that you were here. It didn't think that you would interrupt our communication. It didn't think that you would somehow make it hard for us, or it didn't see me as a threat. So it went and gone by, and I remember a couple of nights later, I went to his room, and he's like, you want to see something? And I'm like, yeah, sure, man. What do you want to show me? And what this guy basically does is he knocks on his window. And he did it the first time. He knocked twice. And from the other side, from, you know, his room had a window that was attached to the balcony. So from the other side, like as if something was from the balcony, the same response, 2 knocks. And he's like, isn't that cool? And then he's like, okay, tell me how many knocks do you want to hear? And I said, how about 5 knocks? And he did it. He knocked 5 times on the window. We sat quietly. A couple of minutes later, the same intensity, the same intervals, as if it was mimicking the way my friend knocked. It was the same knock. It sounded almost like an echo of the knock that my friend made. It was so identical. And that freaked me out, because by that point, I knew that something was on the other side of the window, and I was freaked out. So after that, I don't know, he delved more deeper and deeper into whatever he was doing, and it was getting freaky, to be honestly. And then one night he's like visibly shaken, and he calls me up at 3 a.m. or 3:30 a.m. at night, and he's like, dude, can I come to your place? And I'm like, yeah, okay, what's up? And he's like, dude, I swear to God, and this gives me goosebumps. And he's like, dude, I swear to God, there was another me in the house. And I was like, what the fuck do you mean, bro? And he's like, there was someone that looked exactly like me. You know, I see myself in the mirror. That shit was even more real than the reflection that I see of myself in the mirror. It was more real to me than my own reflection, and it looked exactly like me, and it was just hanging around. It was basically copying my day-to-day action. And I'm like, whoa, dude, you seriously need to fucking stop you seriously need to fucking stop whatever you're doing. And he's like, no. He's like, he went on explaining how he's in the middle of this ritual, and he has to continue this for a couple of more nights. And then came the time for the main ritual. And before that, he was telling me about dreams where he was seeing that he's going to a graveyard. He's seeing this dream where he's going into a graveyard. He's basically robbing the grave, and he's bringing out a skull, and he's carrying that skull of that person, and he has taken it out of the grave because he's gonna need it for his rituals, basically. And long story short, he was seeing weird shit. He was seeing bizarre things, like he's walking around the street with the decapitated head of someone, and he was basically seeing things in his dreams that he interpreted as some sort of sacrifice. That he knew that his dreams were telling him that eventually he had to sacrifice something, and most probably some sort of life. Oh, so he was visibly shaken. You could see it in his eyes that he was freaking the fuck out, man. That guy was out. But for whatever reasons that motivated him, he went on doing it, and eventually it was time for the big ritual. And he asked me if I could be sort of a scout for him. And I asked him that, am I participating in this? Because it didn't matter if I believed in spirituality, or it didn't matter if I believed in religion and anything else. I just didn't want to be part of something. I didn't want to participate doing something that is borderline crazy, that is borderline lunacy. So I'm like, am I participating in your ritual? And he's like, no, man, I just want you to be there as a scout. I want you to see if I'm doing everything right. And I want you to be there so that no one interrupts us. I want you to be my guard for that time. So yeah, it was just an average night. I don't know how the moon was it, I don't remember if it was cloudy or what it was, because I was scared. I was scared, man. And I'm not going to go into the graphic details of it. There were sacrifices involved, and it was pretty scary. So my friend does it, but he goes through the whole ritual. It was a 4-hour ritual where he basically stripped down naked, and he performed a lot of dark shit. And eventually it was over, and he came up to me and he's like, is everything I'm like, is everything all right? And he's like, what do you think? And I'm like, you did everything as you said that you were going to do. So you did everything to the T. You did as instructed. I didn't see you doing any mistake. But then he goes like, but I think I did make a mistake. I got freaked out last moment. So whatever I was calling, my friend's saying this. He's like, whatever I was calling, I was scared that it could do harm to me and you. So I put a protection spell around us. So I think it pissed it off. Whatever I called could not come close to me because of the protection spell that I put around us. So now it's like pissed off. Whatever entity my friend called, this entity was pissed off, because how would you feel if someone calls you at their place and then basically close the door on your face? So that's basically what happened. My friend called him, and when or her or whatever this entity is, I think it was I think it was a female. It was a female entity. So whatever my friend called showed up, but it had no way of coming close to my friend because of the protection barrier or protection spell. And this is all mumbo jumbo to me, because I don't believe none of this shit at that point. So I'm like, yeah, man, whatever. I'm just happy that this is done. I'm freaked out. I want you to. I need you to leave all this shit behind. And he gave the smile, man. That smile was so helpless. At the same time, that smile was vicious. Vicious in a sense that it wasn't even the smile of my friend anymore. I didn't even recognize the person behind his emotionless eyes. But at the same time, he looked helpless, as if he had no other way to deal with this. He had to go on. That he could not quit this. So, and a couple of months later is when my friend really started getting into shit. He lost his mind. He went nuts, and he was in a lot of physical and mental torture. As far as the mental torture is concerned, you can always sum it up to guilt. You could always sum it up to fear, paranoia. But my friend was getting physically hurt. Like, he was alone in his room, and you could hear. It sounded like, I heard this from his family. He was in the room, and it heard like a group of people were beating him up. Like, you could actually hear something hitting him. Like, you could hear the sound of something hitting on his body, like the way you hear a punch or the way you hear a slap. So something was visibly, but still, you could all sum it up to psychological trauma or something like that. I'm not playing safe, but I'm just trying to make sense of what happened to him. And a few days later, his emotional stress got so heavy, he got deeply into drugs. He thought that the drugs could numb him out. It could, the drug could basically make it seem like whatever he's seeing was a reactionary effect of the drug, and he was just being crazy. He did not want to believe that what was happening to him was real. He wanted it to feel like it was the after effect of being high, of being fucked up all way through his mind. So he just wanted that experience, I guess. So next thing I know, my friend ends up in rehab, and he comes back, and he's like this different person. And to this day, I don't think my friend ever came back. The person that was, I saw him change. Whatever it was that he performed some 12 years ago, it transformed him. It changed him. And I just feel sorry. I feel guilty that I couldn't stop it. But the thing is, I tried. Maybe if I was as old as I am today, maybe I could have taken other precautions. Maybe I could have forced him not to do it. Maybe I could have beaten him up. Maybe I could have, I could have done something. But I was so young, and I was so enthralled by this whole experience, because I was witnessing shit too, man. And a lot of things didn't make sense. So I was an observer. I feel bad that I was just an observer, that I did not intervene. But my friend was abused. Whatever he was trying to do, I don't think he did that. I don't think he achieved any of the goals that he set out to achieve. But bro got mind fucked. So yeah, that was my story. I hope to talk to you guys next week. Thanks.